Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwin, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we're going to be talking about a very requested topic. We're going to be talking about what it's like to live in the Warhammer 40K universe as an Imperial citizen, as a Imperium of Man, everyday person. Now, in order to do that, we have to first explain the different types of worlds. Normally, I would create a 40 Facts video on the worlds and then a 40 Facts video on what it's like to live on those worlds, but I figured might as well just lump them together. That way we learn about the world that a citizen could live in, and then we talk about what that citizen's life would be in that world. That way you don't have to flip from one video to another to understand. It's just right there. So let's get into 40 facts about the citizens of the Imperium. A hive world is the most populous type of imperial planet, of which there are approximately 32,380, currently cataloged by the Administratum in the Imperium of Man. The population of these planets are so great that the people live in huge urban systems called hive cities, truly immense, self-contained, many-layered structures that reach high into the sky, each housing billions of individuals. Hive worlds often provide much-needed industrial labor, their manufactorums producing mountains of war material and other goods to meet the Imperial tithes demand. Most hive worlds started out as a relatively hospitable place to live, but would become severely polluted, the areas outside the hives reduced to ash wastes or radioactive deserts by the never-ceasing industry of the great cities. Equally dangerous can be the hives themselves. The crime-ridden, poverty-stricken areas, almost always found in the most populated and decrepit lower levels of the Underhive, are home to violent gangs, criminals, and assorted scum, as well as mutants and heretical cults, who hide there from the authorities. It has been said that the sacrifice of over 1 million Imperial soldiers is worth one day's Hive world production in weapons and armor. The population of any given world approximately doubles every 100 years, with each hive housing between 10 to 100 billion people, and 5 to 20 hives per planet. The sheer number of Imperial citizens on the hive world is staggering, and each of those citizens is a potential soldier for the Emperor's already uncountable vast army. Hives manufacture far more than mere steel and silica. They are vast factories for the most useful possible resources, people. Almost every recruit into the Imperial Guard from the Hive world will already know how to handle a weapon. Hive worlds also serve to populate newly discovered planets. Imperial citizens are gathered from various Hive worlds, willingly or unwilling, by the Administratum, and shipped off to distant colonies, first discovered by the Adeptus Mechanicus explorator fleets. In common with most Imperial worlds, Hive worlds are often based on a very obvious class system, with a ruling noble class and a bureaucratic middle class, although, with a population so tightly packed, there always develops a lower working class that often fuels violent street gangs. As can be expected, the upper classes are situated in the affluent upper areas of the Hive cities, while the middle class are situated in the middle areas, and the working class are packed together in lower areas. The very bottom sections of the Hive city, the Underhive, are often areas where the underclass and criminals are sent to be forgotten about and anarchy rules. Some extensively developed Hive worlds do not even consist of various enclosed arcologies, surrounded by wasteland, jungles, ice, or plains. These Hive worlds are completely urbanized and stacked with hundreds of layers of city, covering the entirety of the planet, effectively becoming one huge hive. Terra is an example of this type of super hive world. The average hive worlder lives out his life never seeing the sky, never knowing what the surface of his world looks like, and often never even leaving the city level on which he was born. Hive worlders are often born into a house or family with their vocation decided. They work endlessly at their task in the factorums and industrial hubs of their hive, producing goods to be shipped off-world, or maintaining the many systems of the hive so that its population might continue to survive and another generation be born to take their place. Nearly everything within a hive is recycled and reused, and few things are ever wasted. The air a hive worlder breathes, the water he drinks, the food he eats, likely has all passed through the bodies of countless others, endlessly restored to be consumed once again. When a hive worlder dies, his duty to the hive and house are not done, and most hives reconstitute their dead for the resources they can provide. All of the hive worlder's possessions, from the hab room in which he lives to the clothes on his back, likewise come from those before him, the dead gifting the living with what little they have in a continual cycle of hive life. Even in a system where the bulk of hive residents must settle on what meager resources can be divided amongst a billion hungry mouths and shivering bodies, there remains a definite division of class, from the spires of the hive tops, where the highborn enjoy the wealth of the Imperium, down through the heads of the guilds and houses that can still hope to live in relative comfort, to the workers, where resources become less abundant. The lower in a hive, the more decay and dangerous it becomes, billions drifting down to rust among the filth far below. The rule of law breaks down in the depths, where there is no system to govern what pitiful resources remain. These are wild and deadly domains, where some hivers come to escape the rigid structure of their lives, but usually find only death and despair among the mutants and violent gangs that lurk in these dark worlds. That any civilization is 3 meals away from anarchy is a very well-known saying that has held true since long before the Imperium, and applies doubly in the case of a hive world. In any given hive, millions must live together in close proximity, utterly dependent on a complex and gargantuan infrastructure for the mere basics of daily life, such as food, power, light, and even clean air. If widespread rioting, unrest, or serious disorder is allowed to ferment, it is possible that the threads binding the hive together may be broken, and millions may suffer as a result. It is said by some that this is one reason why the phenomenon of the underhive is allowed to exist in some form or another on most hive worlds as a vital sinkhole for the city's malice, sin, and discourse. Despite uneasing vigilance and totalitarian control, catastrophic unrest does sometimes occur in even the most tightly ordered of hives, and the history of the Calyx sector is littered with such calamities. Fenx World's infamous Tyburn food tax riots saw Volg's population almost double inside a year, before natural attrition reduced it again in the following few months, while the 2-decade-long period of petty revolts and near-civil anarchy caused by the misrule of House Koba on Malif left nearly billions dead and saw the final ruination of what had been once a most powerful noble family in the sector. Even in more recent times, the mighty and prosperous Hive Sibelius has not proved to be immune, when heavy-handed Magisterum tactics stirred up a hornet's nest of trouble during what came to be known as the Reinhold Blackouts. Open warfare broke out between the Magisterum and criminal gangs, spilling out from the slums and no-go zones into the Hive's infrastructure. Power was cut to several dozen Middle Hive districts for days. Fear and anarchy took hold, and tens of thousands died, with whole regions gutted by raging fires. Many sections of the Hive, damaged by the blackouts, remain as burnt-out ruins, collapsing into the underhive. They are now the haunts of dregs and worse. Also, as a consequence of the rioting and thanks to their loss of faith, the perceived failure, the Silius Magisterum has become even more brutal in the execution of their duties. Another notable Imperial world is a mining world. A mining world is an Imperial planet rich in one or more of the raw strategic material required by the Imperium's manufactorums and forge worlds. The people of the mining worlds are likely to be slaves or penal workers of the Adeptus Arbites, who live out their lives mining and transporting massive quantities of metallic ore, rock, mineral, frozen gases, or some other useful strategic or precious substance. Mining worlds tend to be rather inhospitable places, and many do not even possess breathable atmosphere. though a few many support a greater variety of life, developed cities, and even hive cities. Similar to the mining worlds, an industrial world is a type of planet of the Imperium of Man, whose surface is devoted wholly to manufacturing or heavy mining. These worlds have surprisingly spare populations in relation to hive worlds or forge worlds, as most of the labor is done using machines and other forms of advanced automation. Those industrial worlds whose primary function is mining and refining are usually blessed with an unusual abundant reserve of highly strategic minerals in order to justify the expense of the investment in technology, labor, and other resources. Another world seen in the Imperium is a cemetery world. A cemetery world is an imperial planet where large areas of the planet's surface have been given over to care for the remains of the honored imperial dead and are also administered by the ecclesiarchy, just like shrine worlds. Cemetery worlds may mark the site of a massive battle, or they may be covered in gigantic mausoleums, each dedicated to a particular imperial noble family. In contrast, some rare cemetery worlds may be covered in fields of endless, modest burial plots containing the remains of the inhabitants of a nearby hive world. Not all worlds are assigned a purpose. A civilized world, also called a developing world, is a planet whose development has been allowed to progress over a millennia, naturally without any specific purpose to fulfill. These worlds are generally self-sufficient in terms of food supply and have varying manufacturing technologies and industrial capabilities. Civilized worlds are split into geographical areas with widely varying levels of technological advancement and culture, depending on the prevailing government. These might be countries, states, power blocks, or tribal homelands. It may be the case that a higher level of technology and wealth are concentrated around the original human colonization site. Other planets in this class might exhibit gross variations in culture due to their environment, with areas weak in natural resources being similarly weak in terms of military power, economic muscle, and so on. Some planets preserve a great divide due to ancient tribal taboos, religious notions, or plain old-fashioned habits. A great many worlds of the Imperium of Man fit into this broad category, but no two are alike in the way they realize their development. By Imperial planetary classification guidelines, a civilized world is one that has a population from about 15 million all the way up to 10 trillion people and pay moderately high imperial tithes. It may have large, sprawling urban areas, but none have yet reached the level of population density or self-sufficiency to be considered a true hive city. Many imperial worlds may be equivalent in culture and population levels to Old Earth during the Age of Progress in the early 3rd millennium. Pleasure worlds, mining worlds, and some shrine worlds can be subtypes of this civilized world. The last world we will discuss is a Cardinal world. A Cardinal world is an imperial planet ruled directly by the ecclesiarchy that is completely dedicated to the worship of the god emperor according to the tenets of the imperial cult, with imperial sanctuaries, cathedrals, and temples potentially covering the entire continents. Aside from already being classified as a shrine world that is particularly important center of the ecclesiarchy power, and destination for the countless pilgrims of the imperial cult, Cardinal worlds also serve as a base of operation for many orders of the Adeptus Sororitas. One example of a very important Cardinal world is Ophelia 7, whose spiritual significance to the imperial cult is second only to that of Terra. The planetary governor of a Cardinal world is always a Cardinal of the Adeptus Ministorum, who often leads the ecclesiarchy hierarchy in an entire sector of imperial space. And those were 40 facts about civilian life in the Warhammer 40K universe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, there's going to be a part 2. There might even be a part 3. We're going to be talking about pleasure worlds, and they're kind of what you expect, but it's a broad category. We're going to get into them, and we're going to talk about what it's like to live in those worlds. So if you want to find out about pleasure worlds, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to get more 40K content, of course, please subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, thank you for liking, commenting, and sharing. And don't forget to check out our Patreon page. We put out exclusive for the greater WAs out there, so you're getting extra content for $1 a month. It really helps out the channel, and it helps us provide more videos for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and this was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.